Hello everyone. Today we are going to discussing here a very interesting topic, that is state of matter. Matter can ordinarily exist in three states, that is solid, liquid and gas. Okay, let us discuss about the characteristic of solid. The first characteristic is a solid substance have a strong force of attraction between them. Okay, and this force is named as a cohesive force. Okay, so the first characteristic is it has a strong cohesive force. It has a strong cohesive force. The reason is that solid substance, its particles are very closely packed. Okay, in solid substance, its particles are very closely packed. Okay, and due to this arrangement, they have a strong cohesive force. And the second characteristic is solid substance have a fixed shape and fixed volume. Okay, solid substance has a fixed shape and volume. Due to this strong force of attraction between the particle, that is means a strong cohesive force, solid substance have a fixed shape and have a fixed volume, because this force keep the constituent particles together. Okay, and the third characteristic is solid substance are rigid. Okay, solid substance are rigid. And what do you mean by this term rigid? Okay, what do you mean by this term rigid or rigidity? Okay, it means it is a tendency to maintain the shape after given an external force. For example, I need to break this pen. Okay, when I am applying an external force, it may be break, but it's very difficult to change its shape. So we can say solids are rigid, but some solids, they can change its shape under a force. And when we remove this force, it regains its original shape. For example, a rubber band. When we are applying force, it will change its shape. But when we remove this force, it will regain its original shape. And the fourth one is solids are incompressible. Okay, the fourth one is solids are incompressible. And what do you mean by this term incompressibility? Otherwise, compressibility. The compressibility means it is a tendency to squeeze under an applied force. So we can say the solids are cannot compress. The reason is that in the case of solid, these particles are very closely packed, and the distance between these two particles, okay, the distance between these two particles is very less. The interparticle distance is very less, and they have a strong intramolecular force of attraction. So due to these two reasons, we can say solids are incompressible. And what about the case of sponge? A sponge is a solid, yet we can able to compress it. The reason is that a sponge contains some minute holes in which air is trapped in it. And when we are pressing it, this all air are expelled out. So we can able to compress it. Fifth one, the solids are high density. Okay, on the fifth one, solids have high density. Compared to liquid and gas, the solid substances have a high density, otherwise a high mass. The reason is that in solid substance, these particles are very closely packed. Okay, and due to this arrangement, they can show the high density. And last one, the solid substance do not exhibit diffusion. Okay, the solid substance do not exhibit diffusion. And we have already learned this term diffusion. Okay, that's diffusion means it is a spontaneous intermixing of particles by their own, is named as a diffusion. And in solid substance, they do not show this diffusion process, because its particles are closely packed and they can able to move freely one place to another place. Okay, and they can vibrate their own mean position. So the solid substance cannot flow and they do not show the diffusion process. And some cases, some solid substance, they can show the diffusion process. For example, chalk. If you are writing something on the blackboard with a chalk and leave it for a few days, it becomes very difficult to rough it because the particles of the chalk diffuse on the surface of the blackboard. So we can say the solid substance do not exhibit diffusion. So these are the 6 characteristics of solid. The first one, they have strong cohesive force. And the second one, the solid substance have fixed shape and fixed volume. And the third one, the solids are rigid. And the fourth one, the solids are incompressible. And the fifth one, it is a high density. And sixth one, they do not exhibit diffusion process. Let us see the characteristic of liquid. The first characteristic is the intermolecular force of attraction is weaker than in solid. That is, means a cohesive force. It is weaker than in solid. The reason is that in the case of liquid substance, these particles are loosely packed. Okay, in the case of this liquid substance, these particles are loosely packed. So, the attraction between these two particles is very less. So, we can say its cohesive force is weaker than solid. And one more thing, the distance between these two particles, that is means the interparticle distance. The distance between this particle is more than in solid. Okay, the interparticle distance is more than in solid. And the second characteristic is liquid substance have definite volume but do not have a definite shape. Okay, it have a definite volume but do not have definite shape. Okay, our second characteristic is liquid substance have definite volume but do not have definite shape. Okay, this characteristic we are going to learn within a small activity. In this activity, if the beaker containing 100 ml of water. Okay, a beaker containing 100 ml of water. Now I am going to pour this water to 1 tumbler. Okay, now I am going to pour this water to 1 tumbler. Okay, now I am going to pour this water to 1 tumbler. Then after we can observe that the quantity of the water is still 100 ml. Okay, the quantity of the water is still 100 ml. There is no any change in the volume of this water. Okay, so we can say liquid substance have a definite volume, and its reason is that this particle has a force of attraction between them, and it keep the constituent particles together. So we can say a liquid substance have a definite volume. And the second case, it do not have a definite shape, and they take the shape of the container which they occupy. Okay, example, this water present in the beaker, it will take the shape of this beaker. And when I pour this water to the tumbler, it will take the shape of the tumbler. So we can say they do not have a definite shape. And its reason is that in the case of liquid substance, these particles are loosely packed and a interparticle distance between these two particles. So the presence of this interparticle distance, these particles, they can slowly slide each other. So we can say definite volume but do not have a definite shape. The third characteristic is the liquids have slight compressibility. Okay. Third one, the liquids have slight compressibility. Its reason is that in the case of particles are loosely packed. Okay, and they have a distance between these two particles. They have an interparticle distance between them. So we can able to compress this liquid substance easily. So we can say it has slightly compressibility. And fourth one, it have lower density. Okay, liquid substance have a lower density. Okay, it's have a lower density or lower mass. The reason is that these particles are very loosely packed. Okay, due to this arrangement, they show the lower density. And fifth and last property, this liquid substance, they undergo the diffusion property. Okay, last one, the liquid substance undergo diffusion property. Because these particles are loosely packed and they have a distance between them. So these particles, they can move freely in a short distance. So it will show the diffusion property. So these are the 5 characteristic properties of liquid. The first one, the cohesive force is weaker than solid. And the second one, they have a definite volume but do not have definite shape. And the third one, they are slightly compressibility. And the fourth one, they have lower density. And the last one, they undergo the diffusion. Let us move to the characteristic of gases. The first characteristic is its cohesive force is negligible. Maybe the first characteristic is its cohesive force is negligible. Okay, its cohesive force is negligible. And the reason is that in the case of gases, its particles are very far away from each other. Okay, in the case of gases, these particles are very far away from each other. And the distance is, it's a high interparticle distance. So, its force of attraction is negligible. That's the first one, cohesive force is negligible. And the second property, the gases do not have definite shape and volume. Okay, the second property, gases do not have definite shape and volume. The reason is that the absence of the cohesive force and presence of the high moment of the particle. Okay, absence of this cohesive force and presence of the high moment of the particle. That is mean they have a high interparticle distance between them. So each particle, they can move very freely in all directions. So we can say absence of the cohesive force and presence of that movement, they do not have a definite shape and definite volume. And the third property, gases are highly compressibility. Okay, gases are highly compressibility. The reason is that these particles are very far away from each other. So each particles, they can able to move freely. So when we are applying a force, these all particles, they can able to move. So we can easily compress it. And due to this high compressibility, a large volume of gas, we can able to compress it in a small cylinder. For example, LPG cylinder containing petroleum gas under a high pressure. Okay, then let us say the fourth one, that is, they have low density. Okay, these gases, particles, they have low density. Because these particles are very far away from each other and they have a lot of space between this each particle. So due to this reason, they have a low density. And fifth one, they show high rate of diffusion. Okay, it show a high rate of diffusion. And we already discussed about what is mean by this term, diffusion. And the gaseous particle, they show a high rate of diffusion because these particles have a high space between them and each particle, they are moving freely in all possible directions. So due to this movement, they show the high rate of diffusion process. And sixth one, they can flow easily. Okay, all gases, particles, they can flow easily. Because these all particles are there arranging in very far away from each other and they have a space between them. So each particle they can freely move in all directions. So these are the 6 characteristics of gases. The first one, they have the causing force is very negligible. And the second one, do not have definite shape and definite volume. And the third thing, they are highly compressibility. And the fourth one, they have a low density. And fifth one, high rate of diffusion. And the last one, they can flow easily. So today we learned about the state of matter. And the next part, we will see with another topic. Until then, bye.